Yesterday, we dropped a video about Anna Kasparian and her sort of defiant refusal to acknowledge the merits of Force the Vote. She went on an attack against Brianna Joy Gray for calling her out. But Brianna also made mention of Sam Cedar for flip-flopping on Force the Vote. He was originally for it. Sam Cedar, thought it was a good idea until he realized that the squad weren't going to do it. That was really the turning point as far as all of us can see, phone call or no phone call, right? Once AOC tweeted back that, well, we can't do this because we don't know if we force the vote and the vote goes down, what about step 2? That was her whole thing. The problem is you don't know step 2. Once they signaled they weren't going to do it, a lot of the indie media people thought, well, we can't pressure them anymore because then it's going to make them look bad. And us and our audience, like we and our audiences are all invested in them. So what are we going to do, right? It became this real fork in the road. And so Sam Cedar now, just a couple days ago, fielded a question from an audience member about Force the Vote in a video that he clipped. He clipped this video here, Force the Vote. This was what he named the video. Force the Vote morons eager to remind you how dumb they are, right? We're not going to play the whole thing. We're going to play the first minute and 20 seconds, and then we're going to take a trip back in time, not 2 years ago to the Force the Vote, but back 1 year. And I'll show you why we're going to do that. But first, let's get Sam currently on the record as defiant as Anna. No, the Force the Vote people were morons. Let's take a brief listen.
Industrial complex, people still claiming that the squad could have gotten Medicare for all if they had just forced the vote, and it's just exhausting. Honestly, you have to be the dumbest person in the world to believe that.
Nobody
Nice
believed
straw
that.
man.
Or just really,
Yeah,
really.
that's a complete straw man. Nobody
it
did
is.
believe that. Right.
Because he can't argue with the actual substance of the argument, so he has to go to a straw man.
really invested in it. First of all, the vote was going to lose. Their strategy was not that you would get Medicare for all. Their strategy was the vote will lose. There'll be such outrage from the American public that we'll be able to target those Democrats who voted against it for 2024
or 2022.
2022.
Right.
Do you know how many people those people primaried? Like, we already know a bunch of those people who weren't going to vote for it. None of them were primaried in a serious primary. I mean, it is
insincere.
So I just can't even believe that they actually believe it.
Okay, now hold on a second. For the people who say that we are black-pilled and that we are black-pilling our audience, that, what he just said, is as black-pilled as it gets. What he's telling you is you can't primary the bad Democrats anyway. The anti-Medicare for all Democrats are not getting primaried, so why waste your time? This is as black-pilled as it gets right here. He's saying there is no point. You know, in a sense, I mean, he is making
Right, so what are you
as good a damn
doing?
exit argument as any, because he's just saying,
Right, so
listen,
what are you doing?
you're not going to primary anybody. It is what it is.
So why are you supporting these politicians?
Right, exactly.
Why are you? You're right. It's a complete, okay, welcome to the club then. You are conceding that there is absolutely no point. I was debating one of the Majority Report stands today who was making the point, what you don't seem to understand is that they not only, meaning the squad, they have to not only deal with the Republicans, they also have to deal with the corporate Democrats. No, yes, we get that. We get that. That's the whole point. They caved to them.
Right.
And what did they get for that? Then they'll go to, well, this is how politics is done. Well, it's not politics if you don't get anything out of it. Then it's just stagecraft.
That's what I mean.
Politics.
Who's black-pilled here? Who's the nihilist here?
Right.
You're telling us this is the way it is. It can't be any different. That's basically what Sam just said there. Let's let him go a little bit more. We're not going to hear this whole thing, but we're going to let him go 22 more seconds if my memory serves me right.
Honestly, I think there's 3 explanations.
It's an oxygen wasting operation.
It's an oxygen wasting operation. Oh, what a waste of oxygen. Demanding that politicians deliver for the people who put them there. Ugh, I roll. What a waste of oxygen.
Totally ignorant. 2 is completely deluded.
Okay, ignorant, deluded.
And 3 is just like making money. And maybe all of those things come together.
Yeah, maybe. That's a good title for our show, actually. Ignorant, deluded, and making money. That should be our motto. That should be our subtitle.
That should really be Sam's motto, because he's got quite a grift going here, where he's got really. My hat's off to you, Sam. You found the dumbest fucking people on the internet to actually watch your show. I know, because I've talked to some of them now, and they are as dumb as dog shit. The people who watch the Majority Report. If you could watch this and come away from it saying, yeah, no, that is the worldview I want to invest in, and never come to the realization that it doesn't go anywhere, you're a fucking moron. Where is all this strategery going exactly?
Right.
He's not telling you. He's making it as if by playing it this way, something's going to happen in the future. And as a reformed doctrinaire Democrat and corporate media addict, I can tell you, you went the long way around just to come back to meet the press land, because this is exactly the same mentality that we were breaking out of when we joined this up with the Sanders campaign. You just took the long way around. Not only did you take the long way around, you ended up in a place where you're not even aligned with the people with real power. You're as nihilistic as any Pelosi voter, only you don't have Pelosi's power. You're not even on the winning team now, but you're just as mindless and conformist as the people who are. At that point, why don't you just give it up and cozy up to the Hillary pack?
Also, just one more point I want to make, and then we're going to take a look at another video. He acted like, okay, they're going to force a vote. The vote's going to fail, and then we're going to primary out the Democrats who voted again. Right, whatever. That assumes that the Medicare for All vote would have happened the next day or the next week. No, if they got a promise there's going to be a Medicare for All vote on the House floor at some point in the future, right? It's probably to our advantage to put it, since it is more than likely to fail. Let's say it's in 6 months. Let's say, okay, we're going to have a vote on single-payer health care in June. That gives organizers 6 months to flood the streets. We can organize, right? We can build pressure campaigns. We can build movements to pressure some of these Democrats into voting. Yes, it gives you an opportunity to rally people to the cause. It's not like the vote was going to happen the next day. It's going to happen in 6 months. So build a movement, have a couple of marches, right? Obviously, labor actions would be great. I wouldn't expect Sam to think that that's possible, right? Yeah. But it gives you time to do something. Instead, no, come on, that's not going to work.
Come on, most of those union guys, they don't even have email.
Right.
How are you going to tell them where to meet? Not only have they taken the long way around to come back essentially to the same place, you've replaced it in the Democrat cosmology. The great liberal utopia is always just on the horizon, except that Skeletor is the Republican Party. And, Skeletor is always doing his shenanigans. And, he won this time, but next time we're going to get him. And and the news just gives you these episodes of battles, these mock meaningless battles between Democrats and Republicans. But as a Democrat, you're always in that headspace. Yes, it's on the horizon. We're going to get to that promised land. We're going to achieve that. The only thing in the way is Republicans, throw out some MLK quotes. The arc of the universe bends towards justice, right? Keep everybody invested. Now these people, they've gone back to the same place, only their Republicans are the corporate Democrats. And they've been talked into the same mindset that you are going to achieve this progressive utopia, this takeover of the Democratic Party. And it's always going to be just out of reach. It's always going to be just over the hill. It's always going to be, after Pelosi retires, Hakeem Jeffries is in there. But you know what? We'll pull him to the left. It's the same thing. They're always going to dangle something in front of you to persuade you that what you're doing is not a monumental waste of your limited time on this earth. But it is.
Now what we're going to do, since we just saw what Sam Cedar's current take on this is, we're going to take a trip back in time, not to the beginning of Force the Vote, but to October of 2021, which was when the Build Back Better negotiations were heating up and the progressives were threatening to vote as a group, as a squad, if you will, no on the bipartisan infrastructure bill if Build Back Better was not guaranteed to pass alongside it. Now, we know how that turned out. We know they ended up caving on that. But this interview with a friend of the MR show, Ryan Grimm, took place right at that time. And they set this up, Sam sets this up by saying, well, earlier this year, meaning January, when the force the vote thing was happening, there was pressure on the squad to force the vote. And Sam was concerned that if they had forced the vote then, they may have lost some like political capital with the American people and not been able to force a vote now, meaning force BBB to pass alongside the shittier corporate-friendly bill. Did you follow that? I don't blame you if you didn't, because it's that fucking idiotic. But let's hear Ryan Grimm make a case why. No, it was smart. It was smart for the CPC to keep its powder dry, keep their powder dry during force to vote, to save it for the real fight,
To save it for
which is now.
Yes.
Had they done that? Had they been
Meaning, had they forced the vote? I'm not going to listen to Sam talk for a minute. Had they forced the vote earlier this year? Okay, had they done that?
successful, had they decided this is a good idea for whatever reason, and they had done that, and they had gotten their vote, and they lost their vote, and then that was the end of the strategy. Do you think, and let's assume that also dragged out for a couple of days, because it probably would have.
That's what they were
Just
calling
like this
for.
one did.
Yeah.
They were calling to drag it out so that it would create some notice that there
Right.
was going to be a vote on Medicare for all.
Which
And then
was what, January 4th and 5th, right?
Right. And hopefully they get it done by the 6th. But let's just eliminate that, because that would have been very hard to predict that was going to happen. But what we do know would happen would be that it would push back the infrastructure bill. I mean, the COVID relief bill, right? Because that came in very quickly a couple of weeks later, and it would have slowed the construction of that bill.
By 2
Do
days.
you think
By 2 days, because he's saying it's going to be January 4th and 5th. So, okay, the COVID relief bill would have come 2 days later.
Yeah.
That's certainly reason not to pursue universal health care, because it's going to delay the COVID bill by 2 days. Anyway, go ahead.
that they would be gun shy to do this time?
Okay, sorry, I have to let him start this over again, because this is where it's so dumb, it's hard to follow. So I want to make sure everybody can absorb this.
Do you think that at that point that they would be gun shy to do this time? Like, I mean,
Yeah. Well, it depends on how it played out. But if they took heat for making them look like clowns, particularly while people are voting in Georgia for those two Senate races,
Yeah.
right.
Oh, better not do that.
all for a vote that then got hammered. The next time they came back and were like, we need to organize and vote as a block, the stink of that would certainly be on the strategy, and you might be less likely to get that key addition, which was they're not centrist really, but the swing district Democrats who were like, no, that you guys are right. We do need to vote as a block on this.
Okay, how incredibly idiotic is that? If they had exercised leverage in the speaker vote,
They would have had no
there
leverage.
would have been stink on that strategy, and there would have been no leverage in the Build Back Better vote. The complete opposite is true.
That's right.
If you showed leadership that you weren't bluffing and you weren't fucking around during the speaker vote, they'd have known they couldn't slip the bipartisan bill past you without passing Build Back Better. It's the complete opposite.
Right.
Demonstrating you are willing to use your leverage strengthens your hand next time around. It doesn't weaken it. How idiotic is that? How mind-blowingly ridiculous is that?
Well, and if you watch how Ryan reacts, really they're playing an improv game. Sam is throwing out a ridiculous premise to justify having gone on the record against force the vote. And Ryan Grimm is making up reasons to go along with what
Right.
he's
It's
saying.
always say yes. Right.
He's saying yes.
Right.
This is for those of you who are not theater geeks like me and Keaton. That's a rule in improv. Always say yes, because you might think that it's funny if the person says Godzilla's outside my window to say, no, he isn't. But
It
then
kills
you really
the scene.
have
It
nowhere
slows
to
down
go.
the scene. Right. You have
Where are you
nowhere
going to go?
Right.
Like Monty Python did that with their parrot sketch, but they didn't do that in any other sketch.
Right. So what you
They
say
had
is
one
yes
sketch where
and.
they did
So,
that.
okay, Godzilla's outside my window. Yes, and he has your wife's bra in his mouth.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Oh, that is my wife's bra. And I was just with my wife last night. You know, you
If
build.
you
That's
say
how you
no,
build
he
a scene.
isn't, the sketch can
It's
only
over.
be about, is this person crazy or not?
Exactly. Right.
There's no place else that can go once you say no.
Exactly.
So going back to this,
Yeah.
Ryan is playing a political improv game there. Because you can see him following Sam Cedar's line, and he's not going to challenge it because they're both invested in protecting the squad from scrutiny and criticism. So he sees where he's going, so he comes up with reasons to back that up. I am telling you, as a reformed corporate media junkie, it is remarkable to me how much of this has all ended up back in the same place. Because this is just like corporate media. It's exactly the same kinds of games they play. They'll bring, some half-assed establishment historian on to give some kind of patina of authority to whatever bullshit spin they're trying to put on somebody.
Right.
I remember them dragging out Doris Kearns Goodwin after Hillary Clinton talked about Nancy Reagan's AIDS advocacy.
Right.
And she says, yes, well, historically, a lot of presidents make mistakes, and this will make her a better president. It's the same. It's the same thing. It's the same. They'll say anything. They'll say They'll say anything except the thing that would contradict the establishment narrative, the expected narrative. And that's exactly what Ryan's doing here. Oh, he threw out a suggestion of the direction I'm supposed to spin this, and you can see him thinking it up as he's talking. Right? He didn't have that in mind before Sam threw that out, but now he has to back it up.
Please clap.